All right. I think I've been given the all clear to go ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'll do my best to navigate through this. If people have questions, go ahead and ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them. It's possible that I intend to get to a point or a subject matter later in the presentation, so I may say we're going to get to that and I'll defer it till later. But in any event, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's see if I have been given the coveted power of sharing screens. I'm going to try to share screen right now. Okay. So I have some PDF presentation materials here, and hopefully you can all see this current page that I've pulled up, which is a printout that I just obtained, about an hour or so ago, for our brokerage, which is Forward Wilshire Inc. And so this is the DRE printout for our broker. And I just want to ask, can you all see this? Okay, hearing no objection, I'm assuming the answer is yes. Okay, so I'm going to bounce back and forth between a few visual aids. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is, what is a DBA? What is a DBA? So I decided to use my own name and my own DBA to demonstrate that. Okay, I'm old enough to remember when I was a kid, people used to say things, that's my name, don't wear it out. I don't know if anybody else remembers that, but that was something we used to say when I was a kid growing up. That's my name, don't wear it out. Okay, so here's my name, Peter T. Haven. That is not a fictitious name, that's my real name. Now, frequently in business or trade, commerce, whatever you want to call it, real estate, people find that it is helpful, beneficial to promote their business by calling their business activities something else, giving some other name to it. Speedy Express, whatever service. True Blue, reliable, whatever it is. But that becomes your trade name. That's the name that you're broadcasting to the world as the way you do business. Now, I've chosen from day one to do business as Haven Law. So all my letters, all my letterhead identifies my name, and then it identifies what I would call my trade name. Now, this is a name that implies that there is some existence here. By creating this name, I'm telling the world there is a business called Haven Law, and there is a business called Haven Law. But Haven Law is essentially a fictitious name. It is a name under which I, as an individual, do business as, or what we call a DBA. And when an individual or any entity does business under another name, there needs to be a record showing the public what this business is. Now, in California, and specifically Los Angeles County, the way any individual does business under a so-called fictitious name is they file something with the County of Los Angeles called a fictitious business name registration. So I've done that. And you file it with the County of Los Angeles, and then the County of Los Angeles publishes, or the service that you use publishes in a periodical or newspaper of general circulation, usually the LA Times or something, for a period of 1 month, this thing called a fictitious business name statement. And if anybody still reads newspapers, you'll find these things embedded in newspapers. These disclosures that say, disclose so-and-so has filed a fictitious business name application to do business as such and such. And that gets advertised in a publication of general circulation. And then as far as the County of Los Angeles is concerned, you have now registered yourself as an individual with the County of Los Angeles to do business as that particular trade name. Now, if a lot of you, I think, have created corporations or legal entities, you may call them after your own name, but you may be inclined to say to yourself, well, it's not a fictitious name, it's a legal entity, I created it. And technically speaking, you're right. If you create a legal entity, such as a professional corporation, a closely held corporation, an S Corp, or a regular corp, or something like that, technically speaking, that's not per se a fictitious name because you have created that entity with the state of California. But here's the huge caveat when it comes to real estate. Your corporation that you have created, whatever you may call it, is not licensed to practice real estate. So as far as the DRE is concerned, that corporate entity is a non-licensee. It doesn't exist from the Department of Real Estate. Okay, so if you think that you can create a corporation and then do business as a real estate agent under the name of that corporation, I'm sorry to tell you, you are wrong. That cannot be done. It's a violation of the DRE rules. Now, there's one exception to this, is if you are a broker and you create a corporation and then you specifically get a corporate broker license from the DRE, which is what Forward Wilshire Inc. has done. So Forward Wilshire Inc. has created as a corporation, and it is licensed by the Department of Real Estate as a corporate broker license. Now, there are requirements that need to be done for that. So Forward Wilshire Inc. is no longer a fictitious name, it's a registered corporation, but for obvious reasons, it wants to do business under various fictitious names. And some of these fictitious names include Keller Williams Realty and Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. So even if you have a valid corporation and you get a valid corporate broker's license for that corporation, if you want to do business under a different name, you still have to go through those DBA registration requirements. And those requirements include, but are not limited to, registering the DBA with the County of Los Angeles. All right. Now, for all the individuals out there that are considering doing business under a fictitious name, and we will talk about fictitious names a little bit further, but for all the people who want to do business under a fictitious name, the first step is you have to register your fictitious business name with the County of Los Angeles. Now, whenever I register or recommend to someone that they register their proposed fictitious business name with the County of Los Angeles, I recommend that they use an online service. The service that I use is called Central DBA, centraldba.com. But it is one of countless DBA registration services. I don't know what they charge, 50 to 100 bucks, depending on how many people, how many names you want to register. And then they will give you paperwork, they'll take care of the registration, and then they will, for the fee, all of which can be done online, they will then run your DBA disclosure advertisements in the periodicals of general circulation. Takes about a month and a half, I don't really know. And then you get a certificate that, as far as the County of Los Angeles is concerned, you have now registered yourself as an individual to do business under that trade name, that fictitious business name. That's only step one, because the DRE, the Department of Real Estate, still has not approved that fictitious business name. Just because you've registered with the County of Los Angeles doesn't mean that the DRE is going to let you do business under that fictitious DBA. The brokerage then because every real estate agent conducts all their activities by and through their affiliated broker. And everybody is affiliated with Forward Wilshire Inc. And Forward Wilshire Inc. has a number of DBAs, including the two that I think are really the only ones that are relevant for purposes of 95% of the people on this conference call right now, are Keller Williams Realty and Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. If you ever want to find out what approved, when these DBAs appear on our Department of Real Estate webpage, which anyone can access, you just go to public license lookup DRE Forward Wilshire Inc. And when you pull up, you will see a list of approved DBAs. This means the DRE has approved our broker's use of these DBAs. If you as an individual register a DBA with the County of Los Angeles and you get your certificate showing you've now registered yourself as an individual to do business with the County of Los Angeles, the broker can then apply to the Department of Real Estate, which may take another month or two, to add that DBA name to our corporate license. And it's only after the completion of the second aspect, it's only after the DRE says, yes, we will let Forward Wilshire Inc. add that DBA name to its license. It's only then that you are allowed to use that fictitious business name, that DBA. And even if you've created your own private corporation, that's still a fictitious business name as far as the DRE is concerned. So unless those two steps are completed, we cannot use a fictitious business name. Now, why does this arise? Well, we've recently received letters from the Department of Real Estate, and they have scrutinized the advertisements, the emails, the web pages, the Facebook, the social media of some of our sales associates, and they have threatened action if we don't make corrections and use appropriate approved DBA name. And what's the penalty? The penalty is a $2,500 violation. And I just want to emphasize, I do not, my approval does not make it okay to use a DBA name. The DRE approves this name or doesn't approve this name. And if people are using DBAs that haven't been approved by the Department of Real Estate in any way, shape, or form, they're subject to potential $2,500 penalties from the Department of Real Estate and perhaps worse discipline as well. So a couple of our people now have gotten these kinds of letters, and we've done everything in our power to accommodate the DRE. For whatever reason, the DRE is fixating on this issue, and it's one of their big issues these days. And we have come up on their radar. And so now I think they're going to be looking at us. And so every person now has to scrutinize their own, all of their, what we call first point of contact solicitation materials, which are all your web pages, all your social media, all your email signatures, because these are things that the DRE has gotten a hold of, and they say, wait a minute, you're promoting a particular business name that hasn't been approved. If you have any doubts about whether or not a DBA has been approved, you can go right to our DRE webpage and license status page and look it up. But for purposes of this phone call, I'm just going to tell you the only two DBA names that really matter are Keller Williams Realty and Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. So we can do business. Anyone affiliated with Forward Wilshire Inc. can do business as Keller Williams Realty, Keller Williams Realty Larchmont, not some abbreviated or shortened form of those words. These words have to be used in their entirety. So we can't call ourselves KW Larchmont because that's another business name that has now these two names have been sort of hybridized and shortened, and they've now been converted into something else. And that conversion is now a separate DBA name that hasn't been approved by the Department of Real Estate. And I know it seems nitpicky, and I know it seems unfortunate, but the reality is that's the world we're living in right now. And every single agent faces potential scrutiny by the DRE regarding these issues. Now, let's just go through a few things. These are things that the DRE has told us that we can do. It is recognized that Keller Williams Realty and Keller Williams Realty Larchmont are approved DBAs. The DRE has also recognized that Keller Williams as a franchise has this independent KW logo. We've got this KW logo that we have a trademark right to. Keller Williams International licenses this logo to all of its franchises, and every member of every Keller Williams franchise gets equal access to this logo. The logo in and of itself is just a logo. It's not a trade name. But what people have been doing and what the DRE has objected to is sort of using the logo and then shortening up one of these two DBAs and essentially creating a new DBA. So what the DRE has told us is we can use the logo as long as we are also including the full name of one of these DBAs, the full name. So you can use the KW logo, but you have to have also the full name of the brokerage's DBA. So you can do, they literally wrote us a letter and said, you can do KW, Keller Williams Realty Larchmont, KW like this stacked, or KW and sort of this triple header stack like this. Same thing with Keller Williams Realty. You can use KW, Keller Williams Realty, or KW, Keller Williams Realty like that. And basically, for lack of any better clarification right now, these are the 5 logo DBA combinations that we can use right now, period. And we can't do things like this, shortening it like KW Larchmont, because that's a separate DBA. That's not authorized, that's not permitted. Also, people have understandably called themselves things like John Smith Realty or Jane Smith Realty. That's another DBA. That's a fictional name. That's just like Haven Law. And the DRE has told us we can't do that unless we get those DBAs approved through the normal DBA process that I just described, which means first registering the name with the County of Los Angeles, which takes, a month or two, and then getting DRE approval. And I'm also going to tell everybody, I can't guarantee that the DRE is going to approve any particular DBA name. And if you want to contact the DRE in advance and try to get some sense of whether a particular DBA name will be approved, you can do that. But the DRE determines whether or not it's going to approve that name. And sometimes the DRE will object on the grounds that names are too similar or confusing or something. They have their own criteria for that. And I don't control that. We don't control that. And at the end of the day, the people who control enforcement of that are the DRE. Okay, now that's a sort of a quick, fast overview. Let's talk about a few things here that we've identified in some of the literature. There is an exception to the DBA requirement. An exception to the DBA requirement for team names. If you form a team name, you do not need to be subject to those separate DBA requirements. And the separate DBA requirements include registering your DBA name as your individual DB name with the County of Los Angeles, and then the broker applying to add that DBA name to the broker's license. If you form a team name, you do not need to do that. But that just begs the question, what is a team name? So a team name, first of all, in order to have a team, you have to have a team, which means more than one member. So a team name can be used by one or more licensed real estate salespeople. I'm not, when I say licensed real estate salespeople, I'm not excluding broker associates affiliated with our office. They're also licensed by the DRE. But a team has to consist of at least 2 salesperson licensees affiliated with the same brokerage. So you can have, for example, John Smith and Jane Doe, both of whom are affiliated with our brokerage. They're both licensed real estate salespeople with our brokerage, and they want to form a team name. The team name has to have the last name of one of those 2 team members. You can have more than 2 team members, but you have to have at least 2, and they have to be part of the same brokerage. So you could call we have Smith and Doe. You could call yourself Smith and Doe team, Smith Doe team, Doe team, Smith team, something like that. And you could have more than 2 team members, but the surname of one of the last name of one of the team members has to be in the name, basically along with the phrase group, team, or associate. That is what the DRE is allowing. So Smith Group, Doe Team, Smith Doe Associates, those are the kinds of names that the DRE, as we understand it, will presently accept as a valid team name. If you start adding any other phrases to this team name, it's going to be a DBA, and it's going to be subject to the DBA requirements. So you can't use things like broker, real estate brokerage, or real estate broker, because those things are conveying the impression to the public that you're operating alone. You're operating as a standalone agent, and you're sort of creating or branding yourself as an independent brokerage. And sometimes I get a lot of comment from Keller Williams salespeople, and they say, but that's what Keller Williams tells us to do. That's what Keller Williams wants us to do. And this is where I'm faced in the unfortunate and unenviable position of saying, that's really great. Keller Williams, as a franchise, I believe is headquartered in Texas. And that's where I believe the International is located. I'm not positive about that, but I think they're in Texas. And they have franchises throughout the United States. It's great that Keller Williams has that promotional marketing brand spirit. Wonderful. But California is separately regulated. And no matter what International tells us or what the franchise policy is, we here in California have to comply with the Department of Real Estate. And whenever we get any of these letters, people say to me, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm just going to tell you all, you do exactly what the letter says. There's not negotiation or haggling with the DRE. If the DRE says do this, when you come to me, I'm going to say do it. That's what we do. It's unfortunate in some instances, but these are the rules. I can't change them. And I ultimately am not responsible for enforcing them. So I can't say, yes, you can do that if I have any doubts. If I have any doubts about whether or not something is compliant, my job is essentially to say, no, it doesn't comply. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, one of the things that frequently comes up are email domain names and website addresses. And this is what the DRE has told us. We've recently gotten guidance from the DRE itself about that. You know, we've had a DRE investigator that we've worked with, and he has specifically told us that the URL address in general is not considered a DBA. So, And that makes sense. It's just a domain address. He even says here, the URL address is like the address of a website or even the address of a property. It's sort of an existing physical fact. They're scrutinizing the content that is displayed on those web pages and social media. But what some people are doing is they're creating a domain, an email domain, a URL, and I'm not an expert in these technical things, but they're creating a domain or a URL that contains phrases that they like to promote their business, which is fine in and of itself. But then what people have a tendency to do is to broadcast that domain, enlarge it, increase the size of it, promote it, and turn it into a phrase or a DBA. So once the Department of Real Estate sees that you're not just using the domain for domain purposes, email address, website, domain address, once you start actively promoting it in any way, and they see that, they're going to say, now you're using it as a DBA. And then they're going to subject you to the DBA requirements. Probably you get an initial letter that says comply, subject to a $2,500 fine, but I cannot guarantee that. We're now under some degree of scrutiny regarding these issues. And, I don't know what the DRE is going to do. I know people are going to say, everybody does it. Everybody's doing this. Why are they picking on us? If so-and-so is doing it, I can do it too. And, I get that a lot in my legal practice. And I'm certainly sympathetic to it, but it's just like those instances when you're going over the speed limit, other people are driving faster, and the officer pulls you over. And you say, everyone was doing it over the speed limit. Everyone was driving faster than me. And the officer pulls out his pad and paper and clicks his pen, and he said, I could only pull over one, and you're the one I pulled over. And that's just the reality. And there's nothing I can do about that. Okay, some other advertising guidelines that people need to be aware of. The DRE requires every first point of contact solicitation material, and I would interpret that broadly. You've got to have your name, and you've got to have the broker's name or identity. So that's why this is important. You've got to identify your name, and you've also got to identify your affiliated broker. And your affiliated broker is going to be identified by one of those two DBAs that we talked about. And the two DBAs that we talked about are Keller Williams Realty, Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. That's how you identify your broker. So John Smith, and then you have to identify your broker, Keller Williams Realty, Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. You can use the logo in sort of one of these kind of 5 approved forms. I'm sure people are creative and they may find other ways to use them. It occurs to me that this logo could be put beneath this instead of above it on any of these, and that's probably compliant. But really, these are the combinations that we're allowed to use with the DBA names and the logos. If you want to go with the logo, you don't have to go with the logo. But the DRE requires you to identify your name and to identify your broker. And it also requires you to show your 8-digit license number. So every first point of contact solicitation material, and I would interpret that broadly, has to have your name, your DRE number, and the identity of the broker. And it can't be sort of fine print. These all have to be sort of reasonably similarly sized and conspicuous. Font size of the license number must not be less than the smallest font size used in the advertisement and solicitation materials. That's the rule. My advice is, don't turn it into fine print. Make it as reasonably conspicuous as possible and include all these things: your name, the broker's identity, meaning one of those two DBAs, and your 8-digit license number. You can include the broker's 8-digit license number, which is, in this instance, our 8-digit broker number is that, but you don't have to include that. You need to have your name, the broker's identity or name, which is one of those two DBAs, and your 8-digit license number. All right. So those are the general rules, and we kind of went over them very quickly, but this has been sort of distilled over a period of time. We're asking every single person to go through and review their own, all their own first point of contact solicitation materials. And that includes your email signatures, your website advertisements, your social media pages. And it's every individual's responsibility to go through and make sure that they are compliant. Now, I'm also going to be working with members of the office to sort of create a system for checking, monitoring, approving, or pre-approving any further advertisements, because that's what the DRE has indicated that we need to be doing. But those are going to be the requirements that we have to adhere to, and everyone's going to have to come into compliance. We're asking everyone to come into compliance by no later than the end of the year, December 31st. And I'm not quite sure what else to say on this subject. I know some people find this a little nitpicky, but nevertheless, I don't create these rules. I have to live with them just like everybody else. Okay, so that is kind of a quick broad stroke overview. And I think now might be a good time to sort of open it up to questions and see what people have to say. Let me see if I can maximize my screen here. Okay. All right, so does anybody have any questions that they want to pose? Anything that anybody wants to talk about?
I have a question.
Please, go ahead.
I literally just got my business cards today, like picked them up an hour ago. On the bottom corner, it says Keller Williams, but it doesn't have the realty, but it has the Keller Williams logo.
No.
Is that okay? No?
No. I'm literally telling you, as I said before, it's got to have one of those two DBA names, Keller Williams Realty, Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. The logo is fine, but the logo does not identify our broker. It's just a logo. It's like any other kind of logo. Think of the LA Dodgers logo. It's just a logo. You can use the logo, but you still have to identify your name, your DRE license number, and you have to identify your broker with one of those two DBAs, or if you ever get it, some other approved DBA. And shortening them is unacceptable. I'm sorry, that's just the rule.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you.
Any way they're going to actually apply for that name?
I actually asked that question, Michelle, and Carly, or I guess that's Carly. Is that you that's replying to me?
No, it's Brian.
Oh, hey, Brian. So I asked that question because I've been using KW Larchmont. I've clearly screwed this up completely, by the way. So because I thought I have a loan out corp, and my loan out corp has a DBA. So I've been using that DBA for 4 years. And now, Peter, you're telling me I can't.
I'm not telling you.
Well,
I'm not telling you.
Whatever. You're the
DRE is
information. So you are actually the one telling me.
No,
the information.
The DRE is telling you, and that's the point I keep wanting to make. I know I'm the messenger. I know I'm the bad guy.
You are the messenger. You're never
I'm just the messenger.
You're never the bad guy. Don't worry.
No, well, you're kind enough to say that, but unfortunately, I got a long list of people with numbers waiting to take me down. But anyway.
Well, my point is, though, all the logos, when I started, forget my DBA, that obviously is an issue. We're all KW Larchmont. Every logo I have, every single thing I have is KW Larchmont. So I asked if that was going to be on the list. And Brian, you said you're expecting it to be approved?
Well, I have no reason to doubt it yet. Obviously, like Peter was saying, the DRE can, just deny us for whatever reason they see fit. But yes, we have it out to them for approval. But with the turnaround time they have, I'm expecting next month we'll get an answer.
And
So
by the way,
question-
I don't see any reason why the DRE would not approve it.
Right.
But until it is approved, it cannot be used.
So question about logos, like our personal logos, personal DBA logos that we've been using. I mean, I'm talking like 25 open house signs, a bunch of for sale signs. Like, is that trash?
I don't answer questions about whether or not something's trash. I answer questions about whether or not something can be used, and it sounds to me like the answer is no.
So basically, all you can really use is your name and Keller Williams Realty.
Or Keller Williams Realty Larchmont, or and the KW logo. At this time, that's it.
So you can't use your own logo. You can't
No, correct.
use,
No,
use KW luxury logo.
correct. If it doesn't appear on our DBA list of DBAs with the DRE, the answer is no. And I mean, look, I'm going to be saying no to a lot of people who are going to ask me these questions because these are the rules the DRA has given us.
What happened that they've decided to go after Larchmont?
I don't think they're going to, I don't know. They're going to go after individuals first. They're going to send you a threatening letter. They're going to tell you you're subject to a $2,500 fine. And then we've actually responded to them and said, we're going to try to get all the agents to comply. And we're going to have this meeting that we're having right now. And we're going to tell you the rules. And we've told the DRE that we're going to do this. And we've told the DRE that we're going to try to bring everyone into compliance by December 31st. And there's a chance the DRE is going to say, well, you had your warning. So there it is. I can't guarantee that, but that's what the DRE might do. Because we told them we were going to do this. We were told them we were going to tell all of you what needs to be done.
So I have another question for you, since trashing the signs is something I'd rather not do. So might want
Well,
to
don't trash it. Maybe one day those things will be approved and you can use them again. I'm not telling you to trash, but I am telling you, you can't use a DBA unless it's approved. And right now, for 90% of the uses we're talking about, it's only those two.
So if you were to go through the process, the step-by-step process that you mentioned initially, I have a loan out corp. I've had a loan out corp for 20 years.
I'm sorry, you have a what?
I have a loan out corporation that I've had for 20 years. So it had long before real estate. So my DBA is under that corporation, because you know how when you do a DBA, it's about checks. It's about your bank account. It's one company doing business as another company. Are you saying that if you wanted to get your DBA approved by the Department of Real Estate, it has to be you as an individual with the DBA, even if all your money is going through your corp?
Yeah. You seem to think, like a lot of people think, that creating a corp somehow exempts you from this, and it doesn't, as I said. Secondly, you're only allowed to engage in licensed real estate activities through Keller Williams Larchmont. If you are engaging in any other business activity that is not part of your licensed activities, that is separate and apart from Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. Now, if the DRE thinks that you've somehow brought that business onto your conduct as a real estate agent and you're operating under the same canopy, and it's unclear or ambiguous how you're doing business, and they think that you're doing business as a real estate agent affiliated with Keller Williams Realty Larchmont through this other DBA, and that DBA hasn't been approved, in my opinion, yes, you can get taxed.
No, I understand that. I understand that it has to be approved under Forward Wilshire. I understand that. What I'm saying is, you said there was a step-by-step process of getting the DBA to start with. My question is, I get the DBA under my name in that case, because I'm the licensed agent, not under my corporation's name, which is the way I had it before, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then I go and ask the office if they can get the approval.
If they apply to the DRE to add your individual DBA name to their broker license, and that's approved. And I will also say, as long as we're on the subject, some people say, well, that's my DBA. What happens if I leave? And the policy on that is simple. The broker, if you leave and you go join another brokerage, this brokerage will release that DBA. It will take it off its corporate license so that when you go to another broker, you can apply with that broker to add that DBA to that broker's corporate license. And if any of you decide to go out and create your own, be your own broker, get your own broker license or whatever, you can then apply to have that DBA added to that broker license. We're not trying to hold your broker, your DBAs, and keep them hostage. They go where you go, but you can't use them unless your affiliated broker has registered them with approved them with the Department of Real Estate. And before the Department of Real Estate will approve them, they need to see proof that a licensed agent has registered that DBA with the County of Los Angeles. That's the first step.
That's okay. So the idea, I doubt mine would be approved, I guess, but I guess I might as well try since I've got a myriad of signs with the name on it.
Yeah.
The Keller Williams Larchmont versus Keller Williams Realty, that probably can be handled with a sticker. But the other stuff, not so much. May I ask, is this why people, red is on there, so obviously that's not why they changed to the Barentine Group, but is that why Tiffany changed to Tiffany Chin Group from what she was doing before? I'm just wondering if that's why people are making these changes.
Well, I think one of the reasons that people are making these changes is because we received two letters, one addressed to an individual in October and the other addressed to the brokerage office as a whole. And the letter, part of which I showed you, threatening a $2,500 fine against individuals, the letter said that the DRE had previously addressed these issues with us. And I do recall a year or two ago having another Keller Williams agent that I had to go through this process with individually, and it took a while to bring him into compliance. So I assume that the message is getting out to agents and associates that this needs to be done. But to the extent the message was just sort of circulating, the purpose of this meeting is to make it more formal and to make it more clear that this is the message that unfortunately or fortunately we have to all comply with.
Well, this first time I'm hearing about it. It's only been 5 years.
Well, better late than never, and certainly by the end of the year.
Are other states having this issue? Or is this strictly California?
The Department of Real Estate is limited to the state of California. I don't know what other states are doing. I suspect that other states are not as regulated. Now, I'll just go off on a little soapbox here. Like all of you, frankly, this annoys me. I'm kind of annoyed with the DRE over this. I think this is a little nitpicky, but they will probably tell you that they have so many brokers going off the reservation, going off on their own, acting like they're their own independent private Idahos and conducting their own private fiefdoms as brokers within brokers when they're not brokers, that they'll probably tell you that this is a rampant problem. And they have issued not one, but 2 licensee alerts over this subject. Let's see if I can bore you with more materials. So there's a DRE licensee alert back in March 2017. And this was actually a Cal BRE licensee alert issued in March 2017. And it was a supplement to a licensee alert issued on September 1st, 2015. Disciplinary warning to real estate salespersons who conduct themselves, and are advertised as independent real estate professionals, blah, blah, blah. And they supplemented it in March of 2017, allowing people to falsely believe they are brokers. And I'm actually involved with another lawsuit right now involving a licensee who, under the roof of a broker, set herself up and actually started doing completely independent practice as her own little brokerage without any real estate brokerage oversight, and was doing deals on the side and basically misleading the public. So on the one hand, it annoys me that these are being so nitpicked. On the other hand, I understand why the DRE is doing this. And unfortunately, this is just the reality. For us, our sort of time has now come.
I don't know if it's just me, Peter, but there clearly don't appear to be enough people on this call.
Well, I have asked that this call, thank you very much, Charlotte. I have asked that this call be recorded, and I have asked that people be required to view this before the end of the year. And, you know, thanks to the beautiful new world we live in where everything is Zoom and virtual, this call is being captured and recorded. And I trust that in one form or another, it will be disseminated to all our agents, and or all our agents will come into compliance by the end of the year. But you're absolutely right. This has to be dealt with en masse. And today's the part and a step in that process. And, you know, I'm confident that the process will be disseminated to everyone.
So let me ask you a question, and my questions are not the one about the loan out for, because it feels personal because it's being recorded, but this question I think is appropriate for everybody. So if I change my thing to the Blake Group or Associates or whatever I want it to be, can I create a logo for that?
In my opinion, no, not because that you're not a broker. It's a separate logo. And if I have any doubt about whether or not some separate thing can be created, I have to say no. Now,
so
if you
riddle
wanna-
me this then.
Pardon me?
One of the main things with Keller Williams, unlike Compass, unlike Element, whatever, is that agents can create their own branding.
well, we talked about that. That's great for Keller Williams, but that doesn't change the Department of Real Estate and the state laws of California.
So I guess what I'm looking for is true clarity on what that means. I don't
Well,
like red. I don't want a red sign. That's, you know,
If someone's a broker associate, does that make it different?
No. Look, I've given everyone clarity, and everyone does to me the same thing every time I talk to them about this. There's always sort of pushback, and I respect that. But these aren't my rules. These are the DRE rules. I have to interpret them narrowly. The clarity is these are the things that we can use right now. We can use Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. We can use these sort of logo and DBA combinations. And I don't feel comfortable authorizing anything else right now.
okay, you do realize though, I mean, I'm like thinking in my head right now about all the agents, other than Pete, who obviously Core Group was one of the DBAs. And
Well, we've got Core
Tim
Group
Tim
and
has
we've got
Icon,
Red. And
which they're not using anymore.
well, look, I've reached out to John and to Pete just to give them a special heads up on this, because those were the only other two DBAs that I saw had been officially approved by the DRE.
And yeah, and Tim and Joey, Icon. So, but a lot of agents use like their name, real estate with some sort of a logo. Or so you're saying no to that?
My personal response is no.
I mean, what if it's just I'm just confused because I mean,
Look, I
I
do not control what the DRE does.
Hmm.
And my
Well,
approach has to be narrow and conservative. And I'm concerned that the DRE is going to see a separate logo and say, that's a separate DBA.
So even if somebody was to put, and again, I clearly have to make new signs, so I can start over, but for other people, so say it's Jane Smith Real Estate in a specific font. Is that a logo?
That sounds like a DBA to me.
What about, I have a
Fair
question. What about if you have the Keller Williams Larchmont logo, you say Keller Williams Realty Larchmont or Keller Williams Realty, and you have, like, in my case, Michelle Mena, and I would say Michelle Mena and Associates, but I have it in a slightly different font, to make it and put a line next to, some sort of font difference. Is
Well,
that considered a logo?
let's just break that down for a minute, because there's layers to what you just said. I think what you're asking me is Michelle something and Associates. Is that what I'm hearing? Because that's the only thing that I heard that was relevant.
Right,
Okay, so you're asking me essentially if that is a valid team name.
yes.
Is it a valid team name? Do you have a team?
No, not at this time, but
Then
what
it's
I'm
a
saying,
DBA.
So you're saying using group, team, or associates, you cannot be a single agent and use any of those words?
Correct. You have to be a part of a valid team to use group, team, or associates.
So, and the KW large font logo, the one, the one that's like either black and gray or red and gray, lowercase KW and then large font. It's on the website. I mean, it's on the KW large font website, which is, by the way, kwlargefont.com. Is that logo usable?
I'm sorry. I need to know specifically which logo you're talking about. Describe it.
So go to
No, I'm not going to anything. Just describe it. KW what? KWL or
The
KW?
logo is KW large font.
That's unacceptable. That's a DBA. They've told us that's unacceptable. I said that was unacceptable. I highlighted it. The DRE says we cannot do that. They wrote us a letter specifically about that. Now, I understand that combination of words and phrases has been prevalent, but that's one of the things the DRE cracked down on us for. We took the KW logo, we sandwiched it to Larchmont. I already said that we're not allowed to use that. And until it gets approved by the DRE, which we hope will happen, it cannot be used. Now, I'm aware that there may be internal sites that are promulgating that particular logo and word. My understanding is that those have been shut down from public view pending the approval process. But whether they are or aren't, the answer to your question is the DRE has expressly forbidden us or told us we can't use that phrase because it's not yet an approved DBA. And calling something a logo when it's really just a phrase of words isn't going to get you around the DRE.
Let's say I do join another person and I want to say the Michelle Mena group or Michelle Mena team or whatever. Can that be in a different font to make it look different?
So you're going to form a team. Hopefully you guys can see this Q&A thing that I have right now. You're going to form a team, and the team name must include the surname of at least one member of the team, plus the word group, team, or associates. So if you're going to form a valid team, and you're going to have a valid team, one or more associates, and you're going to call yourself something that has the surname of at least one member of the team, that sounds like a valid team. Now, there's a lot of questions about changing the font and all of that. I don't think changing the font protects you or subjects you to liability, but I do think that if you start adding additional terms other than your surname and associates to a team name, you could be at risk of creating a DBA. Now, I don't see a problem using your full name and the word associates. I don't see a problem with that. I can think of a hypothetical where somebody, for example, might, their name, they might have a full name, Charles, Richard, Samantha, whatever it might be, but they have a nickname that they like to go by, B, Skip, Chip, whatever it might be. And then they start advertising themselves as Chip Team Associates or something like that. And I think automatically that now becomes a DBA. Now, that's my opinion, and that's my advice. I can't control the DRE's enforcement of that, but that's what I think.
Peter, I do have one question. I emailed you a copy of my business card. And on the business card, it does say Keller Williams Larchmont. There is a trademark after Keller Williams, but there's no Keller Williams Realty. Does that mean I should just throw out the whole box of business cards, do you think?
Okay, Clint Lore,
Yes.
the KW logo is fine. Keller Williams Larchmont, I'm sorry to say, is not fine. Now, we can apply to the DRE to get
Mhm.
approval for that, but it's not one of the two approved names,
Yeah.
which is Keller Williams Realty or Keller Williams Realty Larchmont. And I'm very sorry about that, but those are the only
Yeah.
two names. So I'm not saying you have to throw those out, but the office can apply to add that DBA name to its corporate license. It doesn't have to be your DBA name. That's a generic DBA name that the office can apply to add. So one solution is to have these sort of office DBA names submitted to Brian or whoever's appropriate to have them be added by application to the broker's corporate license. And then presumably, if that gets accepted, then that DBA now becomes authorized. Putting the
Okay.
trademark thing on there, I don't think that really insulates anything. I know I can see the effort there, but really, I think the DRE could look at that and see just a DBA.
Yeah. And so basically, the next time I order a box of business cards, I'll make sure that it says Keller Williams Realty Larchmont.
Or Keller Williams Realty, and I'm sorry about that.
Okay, well, it's not your fault. I'm not going to shoot the
It's
messenger.
not my fault, but I know everyone blames me for this. But you know, we have to get this point across. I've just spent the last several weeks wrestling with the DRE to get them to sort of be accommodated, wrestling with another agent to bring them into accommodation. And unfortunately, part of the process has involved telling them that we will now spread this gospel to everyone within our brokerage. And so here it is. We're asking everyone to come into compliance by December 31st. And you know, these outlines and rules aren't going to change unless we get these DBAs approved by the DRE, which could take some time. And so,
Okay, well, I'll submit a copy of the business card to Brian Murray as well and see what, they decide to do.
very
But,
well.
I'm not going to blame you for anything. I promise.
I'm kidding. I don't care.
I
I get
know.
blamed by everybody for everything. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But I do have to be the guy who tries to get this point across as strongly as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. We went through this as quickly as possible. I know it's a lot to digest, and I think it's going to take a while for everyone to process all this. But like I said, that's why we're shooting for the end of the year. I'm very grateful to everyone, and thank you all very much. I'm sure I'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you, Peter.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.